The 3 episodes of the Star Wars Sequel Trilogy are divisive, to say the least. Half of the Star Wars fandom loves them, while the other half despises them. Don't get into an argument on the internet while trying to prove your stance one side or the other. It usually doesn't end well for either party. But, be that as it may, we have the sequel trilogy, and it doesn't look like it'll be going anywhere anytime soon. So with that said, there are aspects that I enjoy diving into. Parts of it I analyze over and over to see what makes them tick and what makes sense. My favorite character to look at a little deeper is Kylo Ren. Okay, and Ben Solo, if you want to split their personalities. Kylo Ren was dubbed the Darth Vader fanboy from the earliest concepts of the character. But how close is he to Darth Vader really? That's our topic, today, on Star Wars Fanatic. If you're new to the channel, go on and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all my Star Wars theories, discussions, and fanfictions. Also, hit the like button to show your love for the work I put into each video. With that said, let's discuss Kylo Ren and Darth Vader. Let me preface this video by saying I'm not making this video as a way of taking a side on the debate as to whether or not the Star Wars sequel trilogy is good or not. I am only diving into a character that was created for The Force Awakens, continued in The Last Jedi, and finished in The Rise of Skywalker. This is a character analysis only. I don't get into those debates. This topic is very personal to a lot of fans on either side, and I'd rather not engage in that. Like him or not, Kylo Ren is a character that has some interesting facets. His goal is to rule the galaxy and become better than his grandfather, Darth Vader. That was a high bar to set for himself. But that would have never happened, no matter how hard he tried and no matter how much dark side training he had. But there are some things that are interesting about the way his character was written. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he was better than Vader, just different. But to understand why he is so much different, we have to understand their backgrounds a little more, before getting into those character differences. Darth Vader began as Anakin Skywalker, a Force-sensitive child who was a slave for the first 9 to 10 years of his life. He was then taken in as a Jedi Padawan. As he grew, he was trained in the Force from an early age by a Jedi who had been trained in the Force his whole life. Anakin was troubled by visions of his mother dying, which eventually happened as she died in his arms. Then visions of his wife dying, which also happened, helping bring more pain. It's important to note that during this training as a Jedi, the Sith were making a return and the dark side was obscuring the light side. Anakin was poor. I guess I kind of mentioned that by saying he was a slave. The Jedi became the only family he had, especially Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's also important to note that the Jedi Order was on the verge of collapse due to their involvement in the Clone Wars and their own arrogance. So, he experienced the hypocrisy of the Jedi firsthand. Not only did he witness it from one person, but he was surrounded by it, oppressed by it even. All of these things helped contribute to his turn to the dark side. Kylo Ren was born Ben Solo, a Force-sensitive child that showed signs of power even in his mother's womb. He was raised in a loving family, although his father was absent a lot of the time. But his mother kept him close to her and loved him with every ounce of her being. He was born into privilege as the son of Senator Leia Organa. At the age of 10 years old, he was sent to train with his uncle Luke Skywalker. He was Luke's first Padawan. Even though he was being trained as a Jedi far from his mother, he was still loved by his uncle. He would take young Ben across the galaxy in search of Jedi artifacts and knowledge of the Jedi Order. But his master was not the seasoned Jedi that his grandfather had. Luke didn't begin his training until he was 19 years old. Even then, his training was rushed. Luke was left to figure out things for himself and was used as a weapon to destroy his own father. But for the most part, Ben had everything his grandfather didn't, as far as a loving family and training during peace when it was easier to channel the light side. Not to mention, he didn't have an order of 10,000 Jedi losing their way. No, his master Luke Skywalker was actually learning the most he could about being a better Jedi than the Order before him. Okay, those are some pretty big differences. Those differences would have stopped Ben Solo from becoming anything close to Darth Vader. I guess there's a lot of psychology involved in that. Was his behavior brought on by outside forces, forced on by himself, or was it in his blood? I'll get back to that in a bit. I know the story of Ben Solo and Kylo Ren are easy to pawn off as bad writing, but I don't feel that's the case with this character. Ben Solo had a completely different experience growing up. He was also tormented from an early age by Palpatine/Snoke. But you say Anakin was too? No. Anakin was befriended by Palpatine. He coddled Anakin and encouraged him, albeit with ulterior sinister motives. The way he treated Anakin was seemingly much more loving. Ben was getting voices in his head and being drove mad from an early age. Now, let's look at Darth Vader as a character. Cold, precise, the Force flowed through him with ease. There was no emotion shown by this Sith Lord. He had become more machine than man and hated the man that was inside him trying to get out. Anakin was weak, and Vader fought constantly to snuff him out. He held on to his anger and his pain, and it gave him focus. Loss, pain, and an obvious distrust for the Jedi Order turned Anakin into Darth Vader. No one that he loved in his previous persona could turn him back. Kylo Ren was in constant turmoil, but it was self-imposed for the most part. His goal was to be like good old granddad because someone told him he could. Not because he was evil. Troubled? Yes. But evil? No. Sure, he committed his fair share of atrocities, but it was all in an effort to try to prove he was evil. He often felt bad for the wrong he did, and he even cried before killing his father, which we don't even know if he actually did that alone. It appears that Han Solo may have helped him. His uncle's stupid actions were the breaking point to cause him to turn to the dark side. Yet, you could tell he was always ready to come back to the light. Sorry, I went off on more of the psychological issues between the two characters. Now let's look at their abilities. When Darth Vader appeared in the original trilogy, his Force abilities were effortless. Even as Anakin Skywalker, he excelled in it. He was an amazing athlete, and with just a clench of his fingers, he could choke a man out. A gentle swing of his lightsaber would have devastating consequences for his enemies, and he could read the thoughts of his victims just by sensing them. But with this, we never really got to see what it took to conjure the Force. Sure, we saw the end result, but it was also effortless that it just seemed natural. From the moment we see Kylo Ren, we see his power. The man stopped a blaster bolt in midair, but he didn't just look at it to stop it. He reached out with his hand and the Force. It was stylistic. Then we see him extract information from Poe Dameron. Extract, not read his thoughts. But when he fought with his lightsaber, there were no acrobatics and his swings were hard and clunky. This is where you can tell he was not trained by a seasoned master like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yes, Luke had some impressive skills with a lightsaber, but he was not the swordsman his father had been in his prime. In fact, Obi-Wan and Anakin were both almost evenly matched in their duel in their prime. That is, until Obi-Wan tricked Anakin into taking the high ground. And let's not forget that Jedi of the Republic era had multiple Jedi teaching them lightsaber styles. But, back to the point. It took some effort on Kylo's part to be proficient in the Force. Okay, I know I seem like I'm beating around the bush here, but here's the skinny of it. Kylo Ren was written very well. Hear me out, please, please, please hear me out. I didn't say the whole story was flawless, but this character shouldn't be denied of what he is. Ben Solo had a different upbringing. I think when fans heard that he was a Darth Vader fanboy, they expected a carbon copy of Darth Vader, or at least something like him. He could never be Vader, though. Snoke/Palpatine should have known that. Midichlorians in his blood can't make up for the experiences Anakin had as a child, a Padawan, a Jedi Knight, and a mentor to his own Padawan. All of that happened before Anakin turned to the dark side. Ben Solo really had none of those experiences, and it showed in his emotion, his inner turmoil, and even his Force abilities. Look at it this way, had Kylo Ren been every bit of Darth Vader, fans would be screaming that he is a Gary Sue, that his experiences didn't allow for him to be that badass. Look, it took Darth Vader 24 years to turn back to the light and let Anakin show through again, even after many people tried to turn him back. It only took Ben Solo 7 years to turn back, and this was only after 3 people tried to bring him back toward the end of his darkness. It's because of his experiences. It's because he was being pushed into the darkness by Snoke/Palpatine. He wasn't groomed his whole life for it. He was almost forced into it. And not once did he say, "From my point of view, blah blah blah." He knew he was doing wrong. Darth Vader believed he was doing right because of experiences. So I ask again, was Ben Solo's turn to the dark side due to outside forces, forced on by his own will, or in his blood? It's true, Snoke/Palpatine bent his ear and tormented him from an early age, and he saw his own uncle try to kill him. But he was also fighting back the light side willfully, and he was the grandson of Anakin Skywalker, who was literally created using the dark side of the Force. I guess I should ask if Ben Solo's turn was inevitable. Well, he turned back to the light fairly easily, and always seemed on the verge of coming back before that. So to me, he was more or less forcing himself to be evil, with a small part of him instinctually going down that road, just as his grandfather did, and just as his uncle had the tendency to tap into the dark side. Okay, I may revisit this at some point in the future if there's ever any expanded material on the characters of Ben Solo and Kylo Ren. Beyond the limited novels and comics we have now, of course. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to talk about it with you. And if you're new here, go on and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all my Star Wars theories, discussions, and fanfictions. Also, hit the like button to show your love for what I do here. Thank you for watching, and until next time, remember, this is the way, the only way.